हो गया Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is on a very crucial visit to China to strengthen bilateral ties and expand economic cooperation. The spotlight is on China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the flagship project of the Belt Road Initiative. Along with that, the focus is on security of the Chinese national, bringing investments into the country and also secure more high-tech development into the CPEC projects. PM accompanied by a high-level delegation including ministers and over 100 industrialists and entrepreneurs from Pakistan. PM met with the Chinese leadership, business giants, investors. At least 23 to 32 memorandum of understandings are already signed, discussed expanding China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and invited Chinese companies to establish special economic zones, invest in Gawada Port as well as Railway Mainline 1 project, the Karachi Circular Railway, information technology, mining, agriculture and lot more, relocating the Chinese industries and businesses into the Pakistan. But as Pakistan seeks to reap the benefits of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor's expansion, it is also facing the security challenges, largely because of the China containment policy of the West. So we will try to discuss all aspects of Pakistan-China relations along with the Chinese investments in Pakistan and the security related issues, and also get into the details of the Prime Minister's vital visit to China. To discuss this very important topic, we have in our studios Ma'am Naghmana Hashmi. She is the former ambassador to China as well as the seasoned diplomat. Most welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your presence. And Dr. Waseem Ishaque, he is the senior analyst and has a very close eye on China affairs, particularly Pak-China relations. Most welcome to you, pleasure. Dr. Waseem. And online joining us, Mr. Haroon Sharif. He was the former investment minister and a senior economist. Most welcome to you, Haroon Sharif sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Waseem, my first question is to you. How to ensure Chinese citizens' security as beside international issues? We have lots of proxies working to contain China in our region, to hamper Pakistan's growth as well. Prime Minister during current visit assured Chinese investors and the Chinese nationals that Pakistan will provide them the security more than its own children, and this Bisham-like incident will never happen again. This is the determination of the Pakistani leadership. How do you see that?
Faisal, let me start by saying that this visit is very significant from Pakistan's perspective as well as from Chinese perspective. And this is the preference of the current government, that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, after taking over office, has decided after the Gulf countries, the first major country which he is visiting is China. So this is the importance and this is the orientation of his government, that he would at all cost wants to revive CPEC and wants to have a very good bilateral relations with China in the current geopolitical and geostrategic environments which are actually surrounding Pakistan. Now there is a new era of great power competition which has been unleashed by the national security strategy of President Trump, which was issued in 2017, in which they have said that great power competition with China and Russia stays as #1 priority of the United States. So in light of that, President Biden also followed the same suit, and they have evolved a policy of China containment by way of US Indo-Pacific strategy, quadrilateral alliance, AUKUS alliance and a trilateral alliance. So these are the alliances which are already in place, and these are the hardcore military alliances for China containment. On the proxy war side, we have seen a very unprecedented situation in Afghanistan and the rise of terrorism inside Pakistan by the TTP and the other associate groups, and those actually they are hiding their places inside Afghanistan and having some sort of linkages with Afghan Taliban as well. So those are being now used as a proxies by those geopolitical actors who want to destabilize Pakistan, who want to have some sort of challenges for Pakistan-China bilateral relations and also for the CPEC. So in that context, Pakistan is actually mindful of all these challenges. They have evolved a very comprehensive security architecture. We have a complete security division for the security of Chinese nationals,
obviously,
which has been further
you are
enhanced,
absolutely right,
and I am sure that will be revived. And in light of the current the deteriorating law and order situation in terms of the TTP attacks against those Chinese nationals, the security will be further beefed up. And I am sure that all elements of national powers are joining hands together and ensuring the security of Chinese nationals and security of Chinese investments. So, I am sure this visit will actually prove a long way in reviving the CPEC and reviving bilateral relations.
You are absolutely right, because the Prime Minister, when assured Chinese, it means that there is something behind. And obviously, when the Chief of Army Staff is also accompanying with Prime Minister, so it means a lot really. Ambassador Naghmana, Hashmi, you have the ample experience being in China, and you have served there, and you have seen closely the security apparatus over there. In region right now, Pakistan is fighting a huge war against terrorism. What would be the ultimate thinking in Beijing to put pressure on Afghan interim authority as well to end their support and facilitation to all those outlawed or banned outfits who took refuge at the Afghan soil, particularly the TTP, the Baloch Liberation Army, or something like East Turkestan Islamic Movement, because already Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi cautioned Afghanistan on that aspect. How do you see that?
Thank you very much. I think where our bilateral relations with China are concerned, and when we talk of the region, terrorism is one issue which is of major concern to Pakistan.
Obviously, yes, it is.
We have seen what it has done to Pakistan, and after a short period of reduced terrorism, we have now seen its resurgence, and it is very sort of difficult to see.
Okay. Your audio has some problems. So, in the meanwhile, Haroon Sharif sir, do you think that we have to prepare to deal with any kind of geopolitical blowback of expanding CPEC, especially now the second phase is going on? So, because of the Western capitals, their financial institutions, their proxies and sub-proxies in the region, see Pak-China enhanced relationship in some other perspective, or with the negative lens as well?
Thank you very much. What I see is that, yes, there is a great power, contest going on. There is a geopolitical, instability. We also see, targeted rise. I would use the term targeted rise of, armed terrorism, and particularly targeting our Chinese investors here. Now, that's a reality under which, states live. My take on that is that both China and Pakistan need to work on a model which de-risks these factors. At the moment, globally after COVID, huge amount of work has been done to de-risk the investment from climate shocks, from terrorism shocks, commodity prices shocks. So I have few recommendations here for both, which I've been giving publicly and privately, to all the investors. Please be mindful that investor and investment is the most coward thing in the world. If they do see a risk, they will immediately get risk averse, So it is the investment climate which you offer. So there are 3-4 things. My first thing is that we need to tone down the government to government, angle of CPEC 2. Because when it is highlighted as a state strategic partnership, then, the global competition and other things start getting active a lot more. In any case, I signed the industrial cooperation MOU with China. The second phase is all about industrial cooperation. And industrial cooperation is done by private sector. So my second suggestion is that focus more on policy and support and financing to joint ventures of Pakistani companies with Chinese companies, where minimum, movement of Chinese nationals for the time being actually is required. Most of the work is done by credible Pakistani business houses, So what will happen is that pace will continue. And, as a matter of fact, both countries will understand each other's business environment, ethics, regulations, culture, opportunities, that's a knowledge platform as well. So I think if we move toward that side, thing will be not only sustained, in fact, it will be flourishing in the future. The third major de-risking factor is that we should start thinking from bilateral Pakistan and China economic development partnership to make it trilateral or bring two more countries in the game. So the more interests come in, the risk factor goes down. Now that all need a lot of strategic thinking and planning on the part of Pakistan and government of Pakistan. And I'm sure they're talking about it. What we need to do it, and my advice to my political friends is that we should actually sell concrete transactions rather than just MOUs and announcements. Now, China is basically the future of Pakistan's economic sustainability lies with China. As a matter of fact, the revival of global growth is largely dependent on Asia, and when you say Asia, more than 50% contribution is China. So China is the obvious choice for Pakistan. However, tactically and practically, and in order to ensure that CPEC 2 becomes people-friendly, it creates jobs, it expands exports, it adds value through technology, I think we need to take a more private sector focus as against the state-centric infrastructure focus in future.
Well said, Haroon sir, well said. Ambassador Naghmana, you were earlier talking about that the Chinese importance in the region to have strategic balance, some sort of strategic restraint, and to control all those non-state actors or the terrorists who have took refuge at the Afghan soil. How to contain them? Whether China play any part in that?
You have to understand that China is one of the three countries that have always maintained a presence in Afghanistan,
yes,
even in very difficult times. And they have had a very good line of communications opened with the Taliban. And there is a lot of economic and development work that is being undertaken by China there.
Definitely.
Therefore, so that is one angle of the influence of the Chinese on, the present dispensation in Afghanistan. Secondly, one has to understand that China is very concerned about terrorism in its neighborhood. And because they share a border with Pakistan, Pakistan is very close to Afghanistan. So any element of terrorism that comes to Pakistan also has an impact on China, particularly on its western provinces. We have a very good mechanism in place where we discuss counter-terrorism measures, and we work together to ensure that not only we protect our interest but also the Chinese interest and vice versa. And the indications are very clear, as you yourself just said that a couple of days ago Wang Yi had given a very strong statement saying that the Taliban dispensation at the moment should try to control and dissuade the elements there from attacking Pakistani and Chinese interest on Pakistan's soil.
No doubt.
So I think that coming from such a high level, he is not only the foreign minister, but he is also state councillor and now member of the Politburo. So it is, I think, a very important signal for the Taliban dispensation to try and go beyond just mere promises and empty words and saying that we will
you're absolutely right, because the statements are not going to work now, because they have to practically do something.
They have to practically ensure that they influence the people who are taking refuge there.
Obviously.
And the Taliban dispensation has a very good control over all of Afghanistan at the moment. And if they really want to exert pressure, I personally feel that they can do it. So I think that's a very, very strong message from the Chinese.
Your point well taken. Dr. Waseem, as Haroon Sharif Sahab said, as Naghmana saying, banned outfits in Afghanistan like TTP, BLA and others actually posing a significant threat to the regional countries and even Pakistan's security and the foreign direct investments, particularly coming from China. Do you think an extensive, systematic, kinetic operation, which most of the quarters are actually pressurizing, that might be China is also signaling on that must have to be there in Balochistan particularly, because that is the area from where the Pakistani and the Chinese products and from Afghanistan or the Central Asia, that must have to be saved, that must have to be peaceful and stable. How do you see that?
I have absolutely no doubt that BLA and TTP both have their hideouts inside Afghanistan, and both their activities they really coordinate and synchronize, because we have seen the series of bomb blasts and suicide attacks starting from one end of the KPK and going towards the last end of the Balochistan and ending at Gwadar, and we have seen resurgence of these terrorist attacks in last about 6 months to a high level. So therefore, we can assume that there are strong linkages between the BLA and TTP, and those have to be now denied through kinetic as well as intelligence based operations. There is no third option. And secondly, we also have to now involve the multilateral forums, and we have to go beyond bilateral. We need to involve the Chinese good offices, because they have already very good relations with Afghanistan, and in sort of de facto this Afghan government has already been accepted by China, and China has huge investment stakes inside Afghanistan as well. And Afghanistan is also willing to be a participant in CPAC, and as we have been discussing earlier also, that we need to involve few more countries. So Iran on the other hand is also willing, Saudi Arabia is also willing. So now we are actually seeing a very conducive environments where the good offices of China and the multilateral engagements with all these countries can help us in actually defeating terrorism inside Afghanistan, while within Pakistan we need to deny all such spaces where terrorist hideouts could ever be found.
Definitely, you are absolutely right, because without peace you cannot progress, and for that matter, if you have stability, then the foreign investors comes and feel free to have their businesses here. So Ma'am Naghmana, Prime Minister's 5-day visit is a paramount visit right now, and it's a first ever after the 8th February elections particularly. Several MOUs, 23 at the state level, and then rest of in the private sector, cumulatively more than 32 signed in energy, farming, engineering, construction, infrastructure, logistics, IT, and lots of other sectors. How do you see the second phase and the Chinese investments into the new areas particularly, and how Pakistan has to gear up for that?
This is a very important question that you have posed, and I would like to sort of take up from where Mr. Haroon Sharif left his argument, that the second phase of CPAC is all about private sector investment.
Yes.
And a lot of people think that CPAC is only a transport corridor. It is not just a transport corridor.
It is not about
because
infrastructure only.
You and I are not going to do marathons on those roads. They are meant as facilitators.
Yes.
You know, they set the stage for something bigger, which is the industrial development. And right from the beginning, the understanding was very clear that while the energy and infrastructure projects would be done by the state-owned companies, but the second phase would be led by private sector. And for private sector to come in, you have to go beyond just signing the MOUs. I will be very candid here. We have seen umpteen number of MOUs being signed in each visit, which is held everywhere around the world. And MOUs, it's a good indication, but they do not translate into real projects unless it is followed up, and unless you see an agreement at the end of those MOUs and the project starting. So I think the challenge for the government would not be just signing the MOUs, that is indicating the areas where the countries are willing to cooperate.
Obviously, you're absolutely
but
right,
to ensure that all those 23 or 36 MOUs that have been signed are actually implemented, and there's follow-up action from our side. From the Chinese side, there's never any delay. But from our side, you have to ensure that action is taken, follow-up action is taken, and besides, we have to remember, investment will not come in a vacuum. Investor will only come to a country where the returns are good, where there is security of their investment, where they can repatriate their money, and where the gains are good. So in order to do that, we have to ensure where is this private sector investment envisaged to come? In the special economic zones. Unfortunately, so far at our end, the special economic zones are not ready. You know, even at Ishaque, you don't have gas and electricity. So Dhabeji, they're only now into the bidding stage. So we have to actually ensure that the environment on our site is conducive for the investors to come in, not only from China, but from the other countries participating in this industrial development of ours. Secondly, along with the industrial development, that is one aspect. The other aspect is also the 5 or 6 other corridors that we link with the second phase of CPAC. That is the revival of our agriculture.
Yes.
Because unless we have stronger yields, unless we have a better system of rotation of crops, unless we have modern technology and good inputs going into our agriculture, we are an agrarian country. It's not going to really come up. So the green, as far as climate change is concerned, the green corridor is very important, and with that, of course, is linked with the agriculture corridor, which is extremely important, on which there is a lot of focus which is now being built.
Definitely.
Similarly, there is a strong focus. It's also a digital corridor, because we missed about 40 years of industrialization. In order to leapfrog, we have to go to modern technologies.
Definitely,
So
no doubt
AI
about that.
and digital technologies, to bring them into Pakistan is extremely important. But you bring technologies. Right now, I read this morning that the Chinese have agreed to train about 200 young people in AI and modern technologies. But where are they going to go after training if the other facilities are not?
Definitely, the
and
proper infrastructure is required. Even the digital,
Then
the IT and all that.
It is also a health corridor. It is also an education corridor.
Yes.
So these 5 or 6 areas need to be sort of in harmony with each other, and
definitely.
have to grow simultaneously.
Obviously,
because
your point well taken.
One will help the other.
Obviously, that replicates actually.
That absolutely.
Haroon Sharif Sahib, as Naghmana Hashmi Sahib has said, that it is important to cater, and it is important to have the infrastructure available. And when we are talking about those infrastructures, those investments, there were lots of investments, but again, we have the liquidity issue. And whether during the Prime Minister's visit, any conversation, any talk about the rollover of approximately $15.5 billion of loans, including the settlement of 1.98 billion of arrears, extending maturity or the dates of due payments to the Chinese power generation companies, the Chinese IPPs, and other matters would also be or already discussed during the visit?
Gee, I heard that this was on the agenda because Pakistan's liquidity situation is very tight, and we are, in the grip of this twin deficit, which we call, where we are short of, foreign currency. But let me now put an argument to the debt issue and also, the private sector issue. This, as I said, that the more we do state-to-state business, the more, the chances of debt not reducing will be higher. Now, Pakistan's debt profile at the moment, 60 to 65% debt is actually domestic. So if I'm your bilateral or multilateral partner, my first question would be that are you giving the same treatment to all lenders, or is it just me, So it's a bit more complicated than just going to a bilateral partner and seeking a rollover or rescheduling or reprofiling, whatever you say. So there are rights of lenders which need to be understood in a much better way. Second is that it will not be easy for China actually to give, a relaxation on debt to one country, because Belt and Road Initiative is in almost 150 countries. So, again, the issue, like the way we give incentives to investors, you cannot, have preferential treatment of investors. An investor is an investor. So Pakistan needs to look at the potential impact of such news on the financial markets, because people do get cautioned, So my take is that this whole issue can be dealt with instruments like, swap of debt with climate change related, investments, debt equity swaps, certain, rescheduling at the company level. I would caution at state to state level.
Take a very short break because the PM is going to be live. So after the break, we will start up. Welcome back, viewers, after the news break. And we were, before the break, we were actually discussing about the Chinese investments in Pakistan. And on that particular note, Haroon Sharif Sahib, you were talking about the state-to-state relations are actually going to make any sort of a hindrance into the investments and all others, but it is important that we have to look into the private investments and the business-to-business relations, industry and all that. So when we are talking about that aspect particularly, Pakistan is seeking Chinese giants investments in the digitization of the taxation sector, the e-governance, agri-tech, digitization of the economy and safe city projects during the recent visit of the Prime Minister. Do you think that this shows the government intent to enhance actually the good governance in Pakistan through private sector investment in the country, make cities more safe, and revenue collection through digital means and transparency?
First of all, we need to understand that what is an investment, what is a contract, what is, a debt issue. Often people mix these things. Now, first thing first. First thing is that infrastructure of almost $30 billion have been laid in the first phase of CPAC. Okay? Now, at least the equal amount needs to be attracted from private investors as a private capital, so that it doubles and it then starts creating jobs and it starts adding value. And then people would actually see the benefits of that infrastructure. Otherwise, infrastructure remains an isolated thing. And that is where I would highlight that the role of Planning Commission is very limited. And we need to pass it on to private bodies and people who facilitate businesses and have a strategy about it with China. Second part is China helping Pakistan improve, our expenditure management or tax revenue collections and systems and IT. That's mostly a contracting job between the two countries, and they can get expertise from anywhere. And I hope most of that expertise comes in the shape of grant. That would be very helpful if we learn from that experience and have systems. But I have doubt that Pakistani institutions, particularly state bodies, are ready for that kind of digitalization or change. For that, Pakistan needs to do a lot of homework, what we call a change management, process, because the client needs to be willing to get it done. This effort has been done with the Western multilaterals umpteenth of times. So I think it's good. My third advice to Pakistan is that we need to sequence our wish list. We cannot do the capability of the state. The political situation in Pakistan does not allow to do a transformational, very big everything, under the sun. So we need to set our priorities. For instance, if I were there, I would immediately have world-class policies for food security and agriculture value addition, and also Pakistan coming into knowledge economy of IT. Stop it. Show it that you can do it, because China is not going to do it. The policy framework, incentives, the dispute resolution, the allocation of land, economic zones is our job. So we need to demonstrate that we are ready to absorb. China is always there, or other countries are there, but it is Pakistan's job to put our economic value proposition, on table. And that is where I worry that the state capacity is so weak. They need to partner again with private sector. Create a space where best of the best minds can come in and start talking to China on these issues. I'm afraid if we just leave it to the bureaucracy and the current, structure of state, it is not ready for a transformational shift. So we need to learn how Vietnam did it, how Cambodia is doing it, what is happening in Bangladesh. So we need to raise our
Your point well taken. Your point well taken. When Haroon Sharif Sahib is saying about very absolutely correct and very vital in that sense, that why not to bring technology? Why not to, when we are talking about to have focus on investments and the bilateral trade, the potential is the transfer of technology, prepare your population, especially the youth, on that aspect, the industry, the partnerships in the information technology, agri, mining, steel, textile and renewable energy as well. So why not to have that and into the private sector particularly?
I couldn't agree more with Haroon Sahib, and we have long discussions on this issue. As I said in my earlier intervention, that CPAC 2 or the second phase of CPAC is all about private sector and about high quality development. So when they say high quality development, what do you mean? That just means modern
Obviously,
technology.
obviously.
That just means, in another word, leapfrogging the phase in which we could not develop, and bring in technologies which are modern and replace them with our redundant technologies.
Definitely.
That is the only way that we can actually leapfrog into the present phase of development which the world is going through. And for us, actually, the advancement in technology is a God-given.
Obviously.
Because if we were still in that phase of slow industrialization, we would have been left behind. So this is a good opportunity for Pakistan to seize this opportunity and take Pakistan into the modern era. But as Haroon Sahib has also said, and I also said earlier, these things cannot happen in a vacuum.
Obviously.
You
Obviously, no
have
doubt.
to develop your own capacity to absorb it. You also have to develop your own capacity to ensure that things are done with integrity and with hard work like the way they do.
Yes.
But otherwise, our own slackness and our own bureaucratic red tapeism will again cause obstacles. Therefore, it would be the best possible thing that the government can do is stop interfering and trying to do business itself, but provide that atmosphere, provide those facilities which enable our private sector to gain confidence
and to grow as well. Definitely.
Because
you are absolutely
this
right.
phase
Absolutely
will be
right.
led by the private
No
sector.
doubt, no doubt about
if
that.
you have, sorry, let me just complete
why
my
not? Why not?
argument,
Please.
because look at high interest rates. Most of the internal lending that the commercial banks are doing is to the government. There's nothing left for the private sector to,
Obviously,
so
yes.
their share
No
is
space.
low.
No space.
There's no
is there.
space. We have our own problems. I'm not saying that it's without reason, but the incentives that you are giving are still far behind the incentives that the other Southeast Asian countries are giving to these same investors. We still don't have the one window operation. We still have to, go to 36 kind of permissions for an investor to go and do business. You go to China, it takes 48 hours. You go to
definitely.
Vietnam, it takes 36
we have lots
hours.
of bottlenecks and the hurdles, really.
So what I'm saying, all this is very good. They look very nice on paper. But the government has to come back and ensure that what they have agreed upon.
We have to be practical at any cost. We have to be.
We have to provide the wherewithal within Pakistan, enhance our capacity, and that is the only way you're going to attract foreign investment.
No doubt about it.
Not
no
without
doubt about
that.
it. Dr. Waseem, what benefits Pakistan actually can get from Chinese space, science, aviation, communication and high-tech advancements, as Madam was saying actually, as Pakistan has successfully launched a lunar probe iCube-Q and the multi-mission communication satellite just last week, the ParkSat MM1 from China. So how can we enhance and harness our space program? How can we get benefits on science and technology, better communication and high-tech development?
Faisal, if you see that China is a leading industrialized nation today at the global level.
Yes.
Okay, what we have seen that though industrialization came over here after 1978, but the pace which they gathered and the momentum which they went through, and in a very limited time of about 30 years, they became almost the leading economy. So now today China is a highly industrialized nation, and we have the advantage of being the ironclad friendship and iron brothers. So therefore, we can use this leverage, and we lack capacity, we lack R&D facilities, and we also lack the required human resource. And China is actually willing to help us in all these three domains. For the time being, we have been able to actually make a satellite indigenously with still some Chinese help, but we don't have the launching facilities. So we use the Chinese good offices and their facilities. But China is ready to actually come and help us in all these domains. So we need to capitalize. But we don't have the requisite infrastructure. The only IST, the Institute of Space Technology, we can expand it to make a full-fledged university and with lot of departments and lot of experts coming in, and then we train the human resource of Pakistan. And accordingly, we would invest in the launching facilities as well. And the overall context, as the discussion was going on previously also, we actually lack the requisite human resource. While we have 70,000 engineers unemployed, which are being added by 5,000 every year, but those actually graduating from the universities, they hardly have any industrial linkages. So therefore, we need to realign our preferences with respect
Unfortunately,
to
it is
academia
an
as
old
well as
phenomena
industry
that our academia is not linked with the industry, academia industry linkage is not there. Then there must have to be some state organs has to be linked with academia and industry as well. So there are lots of things, and R&D is totally a separate subject, unfortunately. That is, research and development is not there, even not in academia, not in industry, so that is not getting benefit out of what the scientific research is all about and all that. So when it comes to Ma'am Naghmana, about you have already mentioned about 200,000 IT graduates, or the youth is going to be trained free of cost by a private Chinese company, a leading one globally. So how do you see that aspect? But as you have rightly mentioned, when they come, we don't have the infrastructure to absorb them. So how, whether we are going to be willing to train all those people, and when they'll be back, they are going to absorb in any sort of industry, we have that availability here?
This is exactly what my colleague Dr. Waseem was also saying, that you need to have that linkage.
Yeah.
Now you have all these people, trained people who are coming, but if your industry is not up to date, if you're, let's say for example, the machines that you have for making your footballs or for making your textiles or in your, ginning industry and all, if those are not also ready or are of the requisite quality to absorb those high-tech human power, where will they go? They will take visas and go to other countries where
Obviously,
these facilities
yes.
are available. So
you lost your human resource ultimately.
You have to look at it as a package. The time for doing piecemeal developments of certain sectors has gone. There has to be a development strategy that connects all the nodes.
Obviously.
Because without that, you have the human resource, you don't have the industry to absorb them, you have your agricultural land that's not producing well, you have your hybrid seeds, but you don't have the modern irrigation facilities. So all these things, some planning division should do it, that there has to be a coordinated sort of strategy where all the different sectors enable each other.
No doubt.
So
obviously.
that if you have the manpower that's sort of trained in advanced technologies, then you also have those advanced technologies available with you. That is where you need to have these, not only China and Pakistan, but third parties coming in and bringing in new technologies and benefiting from not only the BRI cooperation, but third-party participation in
Your
BRI
point well taken, ma'am.
cooperation.
Dr. Waseem, if you just briefly tell us about the Main Line 1 North-South Peshawar Karachi project that is now a talk of town from the last many years, and then the Karachi Circular Railway was also echoed there in China, as well as the Prime Minister invited Chinese investments from the private sector into these projects. That is the rational thinking of that. So how do you see that, whether that is going to come, and what would be the ultimate scenario for these important projects?
Faisal, unfortunately, we lost a lot of time, and the price has been doubled by now.
Yeah.
Now 6.7 billion US dollars, and previously it used to be something around slightly over 3 billion US dollars. Now this, from my perspective, the coming 5 years or the ongoing 5 years are actually do and die for Pakistan's economy, as well as Pakistan's overall enduring stability. In that context, in these 5 years, we have to do everything possible to facilitate CPEC, all domains, as well as ML1, which is a strategic project for Pakistan. The current railway line is over 100 years old. So we need to replace it with the modern facilities. And if this ML1, which is the estimated time is about slightly more than 5 years, if it is laid out by 2030, the strategic dimensions of Pakistan's north, south and east-west movement would be absolutely changed. We move from Karachi and will be in Peshawar in good about 12 to 13 hours, and same way the cargo carriage. So by that way, it is our vital strategic necessity, and we need to pursue it, and we need to facilitate it by all ways.
Definitely,
and China's
absolutely
private companies are ready
absolutely
to do that.
right, absolutely right. Haroon Sharif said, when we say that we want to get Gawada fully operational and make it a regional hub, along with that, when we invite Chinese private companies to come to Pakistan, along with the Chinese state-owned enterprises to come to Pakistan and invest into the special economic zones, but already the zones which are existing, they lack certain facilities. Prime Minister requested the Chinese investors to come to the steel mill land that has already the infrastructure available and the facilities available, and start investment into those areas, and we develop that SEZ over there. So how do you see these aspects along with the development of the Gawada port?
My first quick comment, there is absolutely no doubt about connectivity and this whole, ML1 project. But let's ask ourselves that if ML1 was such a critical project to bring down the cost of doing business and trade, why did we opt for motorway between Lahore and Islamabad? That is important for us to see that how we prioritize. Do we prioritize, business, or do we prioritize the elites? So this is the future we need to see. Second is, I still think that taking a large state-sponsored project, I don't think Pakistan is ready for it. We need to first bring in private capital. Now coming back to, the second part of your question, could you quickly repeat it?
Definitely, it was a bit about the state-owned enterprises of the Chinese and the private sector to invest in Pakistan in SEZs.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, SEZs, basically, we have made it a mixed box. The policy control lies with Board of Investment and federal government. Utilities and tax incentives are also federal government. The management and ownership of land is with the province. Now, how do you align these? I would give examples of successful SEZs in Asia. For instance, Jebel Ali in Dubai, totally owned and controlled by private investors. Private investors actually know what is needed for the business, Similarly, when I analyzed SEZs as chairman BOI, the utilities supply was less than 15%, even to the existing ones, and we are going to build 9 more, So my take is that it's a good idea to give SEZs management to people who know how to do it, but then stand behind your, commitment. Taxation alone is not a good incentive for SEZ. It is like a ship where everything is plugged inside a compound, and that there are huge successful examples around us. We should invite them and ask them to, partner and take the management control and run it. The provinces, unfortunately, and I'll be very candid because I was negotiating, provinces look at SEZs mostly as real estate ventures. Now, it is not a real estate venture. It is basically to give maximum facilitation to investors under one thing. Final thing is critical. SEZs in areas.
Unfortunately, we have run short of time. It was a very candid discussion going on, and I want to continue it, but unfortunately, we have a very squeezed time. So, thank you very much for your precious time online and very elaborative view on the investments overall coming from China, and it's important. Thank you very much, Ma'am Naghmana Hashmi, for your presence here in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Waseem, for your presence. Viewers, as you have just listened to our panelists, it is important for Pakistan. No doubt that the Western containment of China policy will continue, but we have to put our house in order regarding security, regarding investment and economy as well. The joint ventures from the Pakistan-China private sector is very important. Private sector investments are very important because the second phase is all about the private sector. The businesses and the commercial ventures must have to be here. Along with that, trilateral and quadrilateral mechanism must have to be there into the CPAC so that the more investment from different countries come into. And when we are talking about the first phase of the CPAC, there was $25 to $30 billion of investment. Panelists think about that there must have to be 30 billion at least from the private sector of China into Pakistan, so that there would be a cautious approach on that, and at least both of the countries' private sector should grow. IT, high-tech development, digitization, that is paramount and very important. We have to prioritize that, and when we are talking about overall development, the high-tech development of Pakistan is important, and for that matter, the infrastructure must have to be there. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz Nasir.